Hi everyone. So welcome to Developer Commentary. So this is going to be a special sort of series that we're recording during the WWDC conference, and I think we're all really excited about the week. And we just want to spend 15 minutes every day throughout the week to just have a recap of what we found most exciting. What we found to be the most exciting announcements throughout that day. All right. So I'm here with Adam and Kai, and my name is Malin.
Hello.
And we're all three developers who have been working with the Apple platforms in one way or another for a while now. So I think we're all really excited to hear what's coming out this year from Apple. So let's start off with talking about what we're anticipating, or I guess wishing for this year. Kai.
Really?
How
I
about
gotta
you?
start? All right. It doesn't even give me any kind of
You have the best
chance
thoughts.
to level my pick. I was kind of going back and forth because for me, I kind of had two categories. One is hardware, one is kind of software. And even in software, I split into two categories, which is kind of from the developer perspective.
I said one thing each.
So
Okay.
I thought I'd give you an assortment. As far as hardware goes, I hope we see kind of M series Macs that kind of cater towards the pro market. iMac Pro, MacBook Pro, 14-inch, 16-inch. I take any of them just because I'm curious about what will Apple ship as a Pro M series type machine. From a developer perspective, one that I just really like is better tooling for testing on the Mac, and in particular TestFlight. Just be really nice to finally this year getting a whole bunch of new kind of developer quality of life improvements in general, but Mac in particular, because there are a few things that we kind of expected to come to the Mac for a long time, like TestFlight, and still not here. This seems like a good time, and I hope it supports all kind of apps, not just Catalyst apps. And otherwise, there's a whole bunch of assortments that I would like to see, but those are probably, if you want to try to cap me, those are probably my favorite.
Okay, so if you would get one wish, it would be pro developer or more tooling for developers on the Mac.
Look, now you're poking me. Of course, also SwiftUI. There's a lot of SwiftUI things on the Mac. If I would pick one, we figured out enough ways around the current set of SwiftUI that I would take the new hardware over SwiftUI, but I hope we get all of it.
All right.
Just curious, Kai, why did you say, I'm just going to nitpick one little thing, like when you said you hope that TestFlight isn't Catalyst only, why would that be the case? Like, is there some technical thing where that would be easier for Apple to only provide Catalyst apps, or you think they're just kind of in a mood for making life difficult for real Mac developers?
Sometimes there are weird limitations where you're like, really? This is the limitation you picked? And I just don't want, because I do think it's easier, right? If you have a Catalyst apps, it's using all the same entitlements that an iOS app would use, and TestFlight is already configured for the entire deployment scheme is a bit more similar to iOS than macOS. You have a lot more different, like, for Mac apps, you can have helper tools that you embed in your binary that are kind of installed separately, or you have sandbox requirements in certain apps that are not having sandbox requirements if you have specific entitlements. I just think overall Mac apps are probably more complicated to maintain through TestFlight, and Catalyst only apps would just kind of shrink the kind of feature load.
If they've already solved those problems, though, for the Mac App Store, I would assume, I guess I kind of see TestFlight as just a special version of the Mac App Store that lets you access certain apps, but maybe that's not technically what's actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, look, ideally, yes. I hope that's what we're getting. I'm just kind of, Apple's in a weird state, I feel, on the Mac, where it's like, hey, how about you make apps with Catalyst? And everyone's like, all right. And we also have SwiftUI, and people are like, so SwiftUI or Catalyst? And it's like, how about you just run your apps on the M1 chip, on the M1 chip Macs as they are? I was like, okay, now we have like 4 different ways. So I just hope that we kind of see either equal support, which is hard to maintain, or some kind of convergence now where Apple makes a statement of saying, look, we think SwiftUI is the way to go. We still support Catalyst, but we kind of expect more and more parts of the app to kind of convert into SwiftUI. This is the way forward. I just hope we're seeing something that...
Now you're stretching what you're wishing for. the only reason I'm complaining is because those are sort of my touching on my things now. So.
Sorry, Malin. So what's your one thing?
Malin, why don't we transition to your pick?
Yeah, sure. So I mean,
we're already halfway there.
I mean, yeah, for me, it's a lot about like I want to see what the state of Swift UI is going to be this year, and I definitely expect us to see a lot new things. But that's sort of where I'm at. It's like the third year of Swift UI, and I'm thinking like this. I hope that this will be the year when it's like really maturing, and you will see that you're able to do the things that might be a bit more limited at the moment. You should be able to do one after WWDC this year. I'm thinking there are just certain. It's multiple things. There are certain things that are not working as expected, and also certain things that are missing at the moment with SwiftUI, especially when it comes to the Mac. And I think that's what I would like to see, just more advancement in SwiftUI, but also a clearer direction from Apple of where SwiftUI is going and what's going to be sort of the platform, I guess, what you should use the different tools for. And I think I touched on that it's like, to some extent, you have SwiftUI, but you also have Catalyst. And I still think UIKit and AppKit, they will be around for a while. Kai and I've been talking about that outside of this call, that like, is AppKit ever going to be like deprecated, or what's going to happen with that? And the same with UIKit. I think that's going to stay around for a while. But I am curious because it felt like SwiftUI and Catalyst were both introduced at a similar time. And they are sort of they're not doing the same thing, but I think many people struggle knowing which tool they should use. So just some clarity on that, on where SwiftUI is going.
Yeah, I saw someone with a decent following on Twitter asking, hey, so if you would build a Mac app, what kind of tools would you use? And the replies were interesting. There were some people who were like, clearly it's Catalyst. Catalyst is the future of Mac development. Apple was very clear on that. While other people stated, why Catalyst? SwiftUI is the future. Catalyst is just if you need some kind of stopgap in between. And other people are saying, I think AppKit will stick around for at least another decade. And I'm obviously in the kind of SwiftUI camp because we've used this a lot and it gives you a lot of flexibility. Just seeing how much confusion there seems to be about those kind of topics in the community, I think it would make sense for Apple to be like, look, this is what we think. Because Apple's been usually very good I think the Apple community is very good at adopting new features within Apple's kind of development ecosystem. And Apple is usually pretty good at guiding developers into a direction that they think is the right way forward for the platform. I think at the moment, we're not really in a guiding period. We're more in a
exploration.
Look, we got everything and you pick and then we kind of figure out which one works, period, which is a bit odd.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think you mentioned a bit that like, I'm in the same camp. I think SwiftUI is sort of the natural place to go rather than like sticking purely with UIKit or AppKit or going with Catalyst. And that's not only because I don't think that's because that's like my favorite tool that I decided to use. It's more because I think it has that flexibility. It has that sort of new way of building apps that I think fits quite naturally for different platforms, and you can have the flexibility in making great apps for all of the platforms as a result of knowing this one tool.
All right, so my favorite thing is WWDC. Malin's favorite thing is WWDC. Adam, what is your one thing?
I have some more concrete things. Would you like me to put them down? Just quickly, okay.
All right.
So when it comes to SwiftUI, the things I would like are more specific macOS things, like dynamic shortcuts, for example. On iOS, I would love to see pull to refresh and an ability to pop to root. So, for example, if you have a navigation bar, you should be able to pop to the root view if it's being tapped twice. That's it. That's more concrete things. If that's what you need.
All right, Adam, what is your one thing only that you're looking forward to?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was waiting for I figured if I let you guys talk long enough, you'd cover absolutely everything. So I'll touch on a few of the things you already mentioned, just because I did have them on my list. I put new hardware, but more specifically, I need a new MacBook Pro, and I'm a more of a 15, 16-inch MacBook Pro person, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But I'd be kind of happy with just, like as Kai said, anything that hints at what the next, Apple Silicon Pro Mac looks like as far as capabilities. Swift UI, of course. I have not used Swift UI as much as the two of you, but I have started using it, and I have been mostly focused on the Mac, and so I have gotten some of the same frustrating things. And one of the things that you were getting at, actually both of you, is I would just be happy, not even with specific things, but something that just makes it clear that Swift UI is being taken very, very, very seriously, and not just seriously as a thing that's, oh, this is this cool thing you should do, but seriously, like we respect that developers, that we need to give people solid APIs and tools that they can count on. And yeah, there's always gonna be a few little bugs, but people don't have time to always be on the cutting edge of hacking things together, and Swift UI probably isn't there yet. And like you said, something that's, I think intuitively we all agree that if we thought, what will development on Apple platforms be like 10 years from now? We'd almost certainly probably think, well, Swift UI is the thing that checks all the boxes of what we think development should be. It's cross-platform. It's sort of the declarative approach to creating interfaces. It's just more modern in a lot of ways. But despite Apple saying enthusiastic things about it, you're right. They have not specifically said, this is the future and you should all be heading in this direction. They're being very careful. And also, it's not just what they say, it's also about their actions, right? They haven't themselves released any major complex pro apps in Swift UI. So anyways, those are your things. I'm going to talk about a few things. We're not going to talk about Swift UI the whole time because I have some actual picks. And they're boring, and they're because you stole them all from me. This is hard for me because I found myself not that excited about this WWDC, but really? I realized when I thought about
this is the
it's
one
not that
I'm most excited about in years.
I was questioning it, and I was like, why am I not excited? It's not that I'm not excited. I actually am, but I feel a certain level of anxiety about it for some reason. Okay. And I think it's just because I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm just very strangely tense about it. But things that I would like. I'll pick. This is a weird one because I don't usually do anything with ARKit, but I feel like if the rumors are true and we're getting closer and closer to maybe some AR VR device, even if it's not this WWDC, I feel like every iteration of ARKit gives us more clues, and the closer the new revisions to ARKit are to a potential hardware release, the stronger those clues are as to what capabilities or what types of things. I realized that I had stopped paying attention to ARKit the last two WWDCs. I started looking at the titles of some of the videos from last year, and I realized, oh my gosh, it can do all this stuff that I had no idea. ARKit 4, I think, was the last one. I just completely blanked on it. So I guess I am kind of interested in doing something a little different and paying closer attention to that.
Even without hardware?
Not trying to read too much into it.
Even without hardware? If they would announce no new hardware and you still have to hold your iPad, would you still be interested? Is it still at a level where you're like...
Now, when I say interested, I don't mean interested as a developer making an AR app.
So still...
Because, I'm not... no,
is this more...
I'm more interested in the...
You go.
I always can... there's always technologies that don't directly affect you at WWDC, and you're not, and every once in a while you're like, oh, maybe I'll check out this video on multi-peer connectivity just because it seems like a cool thing. And then there's the ones that are kind of the ones that are the core of what you work on. ARKit has always been in the former category. It's like, maybe I should check it out, but only if I have time, and then I always run out of time. And so I guess what I'm excited about is just forcing myself to actually watch the ARKit videos this year and pay attention and give it a little bit more of thoughtfulness than
at this point. I would almost
maybe I was
like
a little too
Apple
dismissive.
to just say, look, AR is coming, VR is the next step. Here are a whole bunch of APIs, but you can imagine AR a little bit. We're a bit more open about that it's gonna happen, but VR is the next immediate step, and VR will help us get to AR. Because I feel like VR you can do something with today, right? There are a lot of really, really cool things you can do in VR. AR, I feel like still comes down to the IKEA floor plan type of apps every time. I mean, there's some kind of funny things, fun things every now and then, or even looking at the new iMac on your table with ARKit. But it's still not something where it's like, unless you're in kind of real estate related things or making furniture, it's still, you know, I don't know, the same. It seems like that's
or little novelty games or things like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I feel like since it was released, I think all of us have sort of expected there to be something more to it. Like it was sort of clear that this was not meant to be for the devices that we have today. But I think at this point, it's been so long since it started coming out. And I think there's not that many direct use cases. And we've seen that there are not that many apps that specifically uses AR, and like I'm trying to I would love to make an AR kit app, but I just think with the current form factor I can't have a use case for it. So
and the question is why, right? Did it happen because certain things took longer than Apple expected? Did they think they would have something out by now, or was the plan 5 years ago that they announced ARKit in this current state, and 9 years later they will have hardware available for it, and people just slowly pick up just enough that they know that there are things happening, and some people pick up some more API. Like, what's the strategy, right? What's the strategy of announcing this like 5 years ago for it not to have anything that is...
Yeah,
I mean, there's not a lot of deltas between how much effort Apple seems to spend on something to how little it is being adopted, right? And it's not something like, oh yeah, we tried Apple TV as an app platform and it didn't go anywhere, but we kind of figured out that we made some strategic errors and reevaluated it, and now we kind of put it on a slower track. No, ARKit still gets major updates every year, and there's still major efforts, and they're still hiring for AR like team developers or for people in the AR team constantly. They're still expanding that team. So clearly there's something happening. It's just would be nice to see.
I guess it's better than if the alternative is they're developing these same technologies behind closed doors and then dumping them all, you know, they don't announce anything with AR until ARKit 9. And then it's not as well tested. It's not as I don't know. Maybe it's very possible that they thought they'd have something to release 2 years ago.
Yeah, I can imagine so as well.
All right. So we
interesting.
really stayed in our format that we announced in the beginning. We all picked one thing and one thing only, which is an assortment of things that we're interested in.
If you heard any of our other podcasts, you would, I don't know, would you expect anything else? I think we're fine.
But we'll see. We might be.
No, we've done good.
We might be doing better once we actually have specific things to point at, rather than just because it's hard, right? How can you say one thing about SwiftUI? It's like there's an entire ecosystem aspect to it. How can you say one thing about AR? There's an entire, you know, those kind of things are just lending themselves to be packages rather than pieces. But maybe from next week onwards, we'll have pieces to talk about.
Well, at least we stayed within the time frame that we set ourselves. Cool. No, this was great. Looking forward to chatting with you too after the State of the Union and after the announcements. So
cool.
Let's talk
yes,
then.
Indeed. All
Awesome.
Right.
Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell and
Do never like and never subscribe. That's my only requirement.
also, apparently, you should watch more videos that we have, because that actually tells the algorithm that you like content we produce. So
If
we
you
only
want to
have
watch a
one
video about something, click up here. Otherwise,
Please subscribe
click
to our
here.
one video.
Subscribe down here.
Cool. I think we nailed that.
Nailed it.